I think that Malema is the shrewdest tactical and perhaps strategic, but certainly tactical operator that we have in this country. He's better than anyone in the ANC or the DA in that sense, I think.
How do we understand the EFF strategy in relation to the ANC? I posed this question to R.W. Johnson in a recent episode of my podcast. What follows is a short extract from our longer conversation. You can watch the full interview by clicking on the link in the description below. Enjoy.
It does look as if they are moving towards some sort of coalition arrangement with the ANC, because if the ANC do fall below 50, they will be the most obvious coalition partner. And I personally am very struck by the fact that if you take AXA, the airports company, that the CEO now is Mpumi Mpofu, the wife of Dali Mpofu, who was the national chairman of the EFF. Now, this looks to me very much as if state patronage is already being shared with the EFF. And obviously, any deal will involve cutting them in. It's like Italy. Cutting you in on the patronage is how a coalition government works in Italy. And it will obviously be the same here because that's what's important to both those parties. And it looks as if that's already started. So it does seem to me they're moving towards that. And that, of course, is a very threatening situation in all sorts of ways. I don't know whether I need to spell them out to you.
Well, why don't you?
Well, obviously, look, the EFF wants expropriation, etc. It wants to nationalize all industries. I don't suppose it would get all of that, but it will exercise pressure for those things. And as you know, that's the very last thing we need is more nationalization and so on. And in addition, of course, they are clearly very much the same as the RET faction, the same mixture of left populist rhetoric and looting, quite straightforwardly. We've seen that with the vendor, the VBS bank and so on. So the entry of the EFF into government would signal partly a return to a sort of Zuma-style period. It would almost, I mean, you know, Malema has strong links with Zuma and the RET faction as it is. It would strengthen their position in the ANC. And of course, Malema is determined to become president, and he would probably want the deputy presidency, but if he didn't get that immediately, he would certainly be in a very powerful position with any such government. And it would be very, very bad for all investors, local and foreign. It would cause almost certainly an investment strike. It would also see further emigration of skilled and professional people. And his party is also very anti-Indian and anti-white. And it would also be alarming for colored people because Jimmy Manyi would be involved probably. So, you know, it would be about as bad news as you could possibly get, really, and very, very threatening. And it would almost certainly give a very strong push to secessionist sentiment in various parts of the country, because people would take one look and say, we do not want to be under such a government. We'd rather look after ourselves. So I think it would be a fatal move, and that the ANC would find it difficult to come back from that. I don't know whether they are fully aware of this, but I think that it would set in motion things they couldn't control.
But Julius Malema has been quite coy about joining any ANC-led government at the local level. Is that because he's keeping his powder dry in order to extract maximum advantage later on in the 2024 general elections? Or do you think he's is it perhaps more of a nihilistic impulse? It's better to cause chaos from without, not have the burden of having to govern anything?
No, I don't think either of those things. I think that Malema is the shrewdest tactical and perhaps strategic, but certainly tactical operator that we have in this country. He's better than anyone in the ANC or the DA in that sense, I think. And, you know, it's not long ago that you had a situation which is the EFF with 11% of the vote. was in a situation where they were driving the agenda of the ANC and pushing them into this expropriation thing. And simultaneously, while they were half controlling what was going on in the ruling party, they were also calling the shots in local governments in many of the metropoles in coalition or supporting arrangements with the DA. Now, it's pretty amazing to get an 11% party, which is calling the shots for the two bigger parties to its right and its left. Remarkable. Now, you've got to give him credit for this. He is a very smart operator. Now, I think the point about Malema is that he understood that the EFF is not big enough to take over and have control of any particular metropole or even smaller municipality. He doesn't want to get into a coalition arrangement where he has to take formal responsibility for what goes on in a municipality when in fact he doesn't have control. So he therefore wanted to limit the relationship to one where he gives support but is not held responsible by voters for what then happens. And that's his maximal position, because that gives him a position where he can extract concessions from the ruling group, whichever it is, but he doesn't have to take any responsibility for what goes on. I think that's his best posture in terms of political gains.
And when I interviewed Tony Leon in this show, he said that any potential coalition between the ANC and the EFF could drive a wedge within the ANC itself and actually lead to a split in the ANC. How plausible do you think that is?
Well, it's possible, but I wouldn't bet on it because, look, the ANC the people tend to be very loyal to it. And when there have been splits away, people mainly have clung to the ANC, and the ANC is the source of patronage after all, which is what matters. And, when Zuma took over, Cope did depart, it's true. But otherwise, most people, including people like Trevor Manuel and people who might not have, they hung on. They didn't resign. They didn't split away, most of them. They said, oh, well, I'm still ANC. So I think that loyalist instinct is very strong. And while some people would be very offended and wouldn't like it, and they would on the whole be the better elements of the ANC and the sort of anti-corruption people, they would be a minority, I think.
Thanks for watching. Let's hand over to you, our audience. What game do you think the EFF will be playing in relation to the ANC? Leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. Also, if you would like to watch the full interview with R.W. Johnson, you can do so by clicking here. You can also subscribe to my other channel for more long-form conversations. That's linked over here. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.